In this video, we're going to begin the journey of trying to understand how the new NIL collegiate guidelines will affect our sports card collecting. Let's do this. Hello everyone, Victor, the Rookie Card Specialist here on YouTube, and welcome. Well, let's get right into it. I want to begin with a disclaimer. I am not an expert in this NIL arena. It's something that I'm learning as I go. The angle I'm taking is one of, how will it affect the sports card industry? There is lots going on with new partnerships and acquisitions, and I feel the foundation of the rookie card may or may not be changing. Right now it's just too early to tell. So for today, I want to get into the basics. I want to share with you a video that pertains to all of this. What is the NIL? It stands for Name, Image, Likeness, and it allows collegiate athletes to personally brand themselves and allows them to monetize their brands. What I see so far, administrators and coaches are trying to understand the concept, they're trying to regulate it and use it to their own advantage. So, the first thing we need to understand about the NIL is that nobody fully understands the NIL. For decades now, college athletes were not allowed to profit from their images. But last year, some states began passing laws allowing athletes to use their NIL for monetary gain. Now, were the laws written in a universal language for all states to use? No. Unfortunately, every state wrote laws that are somewhat different from each other. You know what that means? Political red tape. The NCAA begged Congress to pass a uniform set of rules, but it didn't happen. So with the state laws about to go into effect, the NCAA kicked the door down and created their own set of guidelines that basically says, effective July 1st, 2021, all athletes could benefit from NIL. But the NCAA kept the rules very vague. They released a set of guidelines that basically says schools cannot facilitate NIL ventures for athletes, and also athletes cannot strike deals that are built around pay for play. So I want to share with you a press conference released by the NCAA commissioners on June 30th. The purpose of this press conference was to announce what's been called as the Alliance. Creepy, I know. Let's take a look at this first clip.
Okay, welcome. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We're going to get started here momentarily, but I did want to go through just a couple quick reminders. If possible, we would request that everyone please go ahead and stay on mute until it is your opportunity to ask questions. The way we're going to structure today's press conference is we will have opening statements from each of our three commissioners, followed by a question and answer portion. When we get to that question and answer portion, I'll be glad to provide some instructions on how we will go about making that happen. I would also like to let the group know that we are recording this both from an audio and a video perspective, so we will have those files to share later. It's now my pleasure to introduce the three commissioners who will each give a formal opening statement before we ask any questions. Let's start with ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for your interest and for taking the time to join us today to discuss our groundbreaking alliance. First, I want to thank Commissioners Warren and Kleofkoff for their partnership, transparency, and commitment during our discussions over the last month or so. We never could have reached this point without our collective engagement, shared values, and open and honest communications. Similarly, I also want to acknowledge our chancellors, presidents, and athletic directors who have been instrumental in getting us to this point. Their leadership is second to none. Our discussions centered on the unprecedented environment within college athletics today and how best we, together, could address the challenges ahead, from the potential significant changes to the NCAA structure and governance, to the impacts of the Alston decision and the implementation of name, image, and likeness, from enacted and potential state and federal legislation to the postseason in college football. There are simply many critical discussions to engage in and decisions to be made in the coming months and years that will shape college athletics for decades. And we believe that together, along with our colleagues across the country, we can help play a formative role in both.
These are the guys that interest me the most. They're the ones that have to sign off on the documents. They're the ones with the authority. On the bottom here, we have Jim Phillips, who is the commissioner of the ACC. Kevin Warren, in the upper right-hand corner, is the commissioner of the Big Ten. And George Kliavkoff, commissioner of the Pac-12. What I wanted us to understand here was Commissioner Jim Phillips gives us this very wordy description as to why this alliance is forming. One of them is what he referred to as the implementation of the NIL. Let's move on. They spend the next 13 minutes or so with a bunch of political thank yous and assuring us that what they worked on, they worked very hard at, and that they support one another. They took a couple of questions concerning the conference realignments, but then a very interesting question was asked by reporter Dan Wilkins, and it deals with contracts. Let's take a listen.
We will take our next question from Dan Wilkin.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm curious what kind of document has been signed or will be signed to formalize this alliance? How will it be legally enforceable? And will it include any language that prevents one league in this alliance from poaching members of another league?
We'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Kliavkoff for this.
There's no signed contract. There's an agreement among three gentlemen, and there is a commitment from 41 presidents and chancellors and 41 athletic directors to do what we say we're going to do. If there's any lack of specificity in the press release, it's because we want to make sure we could deliver 100% of what we promised. So we're aligned in how we want to approach this, but there's no contract, there's no signed document, and there doesn't need to be.
Commissioner Phillips or Commissioner Warren, either of you want to react?
I think George said it well.
Great. We will transition to our next question.
Now, for those who follow my channel know that I am a big advocate for contracts and agreements, so this verbiage immediately caught my attention. Needless to say, my jaw dropped here. These guys were in such a rush to get their slice of the pie before the state laws went into effect that they bypassed having a contract, which is, at this level, unprecedented. They go on and on speaking about wanting to bring stability to all the uncertainty. Now I'm going to leave a link to this video in the description down below and you can check it out for yourselves. But about 10 minutes go by and another reporter brings up the contract thing again, and I just absolutely just love this. So let's look at this third clip.
Thank you. We will take our next question from Bruce Feldman.
Thanks, Amy. A question for you guys just from earlier about there being no signed document. I mean, Jim, you just talked about stabilizing a volatile environment. I mean, what do you say to people who listen to that and think, you know, I mean, I've talked to some Big 12 ADs who felt like the Big 12 was as stable as it's been for the last decade. To have no signed document, you have 41 different schools. Obviously, there are some that are going to seem to have more leverage than others, who would, you know, to think that there is no signed document, that this alliance isn't very binding at all. How do you ensure people feel like this is actually has some strength where you don't think somebody's going to pull an end run or do something outside the alliance to better their own specific situation?
I'd say this, Bruce, it's about trust. It's about, we've looked each other in the eye. We've made an agreement. We have great confidence and faith. Our board chairs have looked each other in the eye and have committed to the same level of support and connection to one another. Our athletics directors have done that. And so if that's what it takes to get something considerable done, then, you know, we've lost our way. Of course, binding contracts serve a purpose. But at this juncture, that to us wasn't a critical element of it. And we'll certainly see where all this goes. But I know what we discussed. We all know what we discussed. and we're very confident about executing on all that's been described today.
Bruce, good to hear your voice. And again, I think it's a great question. And even though I'm a lawyer, but one of the things that one of my most favorite law professors at Notre Dame would say that if you have to go back and look at a contract that you signed, you probably entered a deal with the wrong parties. And I think what that says is, are contracts important? Absolutely. They're critically important. But where we are in college athletics right now, what we really need is things to be stable. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. You look at the NCAA going through the Constitutional Convention review. We have NIL, we have Austin, we have CFP expansion, we have the gender equity, issues. We have many issues that we have to deal with, and especially conference realignment. And so we just felt that we could look each other in the eyes, shake each other's hand, to say that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the past student athletes, our current student athletes, and the future student athletes to be able to do something that is right, for once, and to really work together. And I can speak from experience. My father was a student athlete in the 40s at Arizona State University. When fought in the war, came back and finished his degree. My brother was a student athlete in the 60s at Stanford. I was a student athlete in the 80s, and my son is a student athlete right now at Michigan State. So just speaking from experience, that whole essence of college athletics has run through my family all the way since the 1940s. And it gave people who look like me an opportunity to go to college, to be able to compete athletically, to get multiple degrees, to be able to learn about teamwork and honor and faith and camaraderie and integrity. And so I'm a big believer that there are some times in life that you need to be able to work together and do what's right for the right reasons. And I think what this shows today, even to our current student athletes, that adults can come together, can work together, can keep their word and do what's right for the younger people who are looking up to us. So it's been a proud moment to be able to work with Jim, to be able to work with George, to be able to work with all of our campus constituents to come together and let's do something that's well needed at this point in time. Show some leadership. All of the other accoutrements will come at the appropriate time. But I think today and the next couple of months will really be about making sure that we're organized, that we create some stability in this enterprise of college athletics that has been good to so many people. Many of you who are in the media, you were blessed to be college athletics, but participate in college athletics. But I know, speaking from where I sit and the impact of being a student athlete has had on my family and still has on my family to this day, I will forever be grateful to this environment of college athletics, and will do everything that I possibly can with these two men and other conferences for us to be able to work together as we look forward and leave a lasting legacy that we owe. We have a responsibility to our future generations to do what's right at the right time for the right reasons.
Today is a press release, but it's also a commitment, and it's a commitment among 41 institutions. And I would say what my parents taught me, which is don't measure me by what we say, measure us by what we do over the coming months and years and decades. And I couldn't be happier about the alliance, and I'm okay with there not being a signed contract. We didn't even focus on that, didn't even talk about that.
Right now, it's pretty much a free-for-all. Schools are policing themselves. Creative interpretation of the NCAA guidelines is already happening, really similar to the sports card industry. Instead of looking to comply, they would rather look for loopholes and shenanigans. To bottom line this thing, the NIL allows players to monetize off of their celebrity. They're allowed to hire agents, and the money could be in the form of sponsored social media posts, a free meal for a post on social media, training lessons where their names are used, that sort of thing. And the one that affects collectors most, and the most obvious, is college athletes can now be paid for autograph memorabilia and merchandise sales. We'll see how it all plays out. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to your comments. How do you feel about this NIL possibly affecting the sports card industry? Is it something that interests you, or is it something that concerns you? Would you consider collecting cards of college players? Let me know below, and I'll catch you on the next one.